Can you get divorced without having a lawyer? Well, the short answer is yes, of course you can. However, you want to avoid making these huge mistakes. The thing to remember is that when people think about getting divorced, really what they're talking about a lot of the time is that order or that legally binding separation agreement that deals with the answers to three very important questions. Those questions are, how are we going to parent our kids? For example, what is the parenting plan going to be in terms of the schedule? Who are the kids going to be with, what parent and when? What's the decision-making process going to be for the kids? And of course, who are the children's guardians? So that's one set of answers you want answered. Secondly, of course, there's the question of dividing your assets and debt, if that's the case. So how do you go about having an agreement, and what does it say about how your assets and debts are divided? And of course, finally, what is the child support or the spousal support obligation, if there is any at all? And when we talk about getting divorced, the actual divorce itself, if you are legally married, first of all, you don't need to get a divorce if you're not legally married, but I recommend, of course, that you get a legally binding separation agreement. And when people think about divorce, they're thinking about that. But divorce really is that court order, that piece of paper that says we are no longer married to each other. That's really all a divorce gets you, and it's a court order, as opposed to an agreement where you agree to how you divide your assets, parent your kids, and deal with support. So getting divorced without a lawyer, of course it's possible. And of course, if that's what you want to do, it's completely up to you. However, there are some pretty big mistakes that people can make when they don't hire a lawyer at the right time. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the 4 instances where I think that you should certainly hire or consult with the lawyer. So my name is Val Heminger, and I have been a divorce lawyer for a very long time, more than 25 years, and I have represented literally thousands of clients over the years. And throughout my experience, I have seen 4 occasions where people did not hire a lawyer, and in retrospect, they should have. And so let's talk about the first instance where I think that you should consult with a lawyer. Even if you are thinking about getting a divorce without a lawyer, that's absolutely fine. However, if you are negotiating directly with your ex, which can be fine if you're amicable enough, why not? We call it, a napkin agreement. Sometimes people meet at the pub or a coffee shop and they sit down and they write out, what their parenting plan is going to be, how they're going to divide their assets, what the support is, if any, and then they bring it to a lawyer to get it all drafted up. So that can be a really great thing in your circumstances. However, in my experience, before you actually have that meeting with your soon-to-be ex-spouse or your ex-spouse, whatever the case may be, you are going to want to at least get some initial legal advice in your jurisdiction. So this does not mean that you have to hire a lawyer to run your case, throw down a big, huge, fat retainer, and be out countless thousands of dollars. Not at all. A lot of lawyers will even give you a half an hour or 20 minutes of their time without even charging you in that initial bit. So example, in my office, what we do is we call that the initial client consultation. Now, our office charges an hour of the lawyer's time to provide that initial advice. But what that initial consultation will do is it will give you a very broad brush idea of what your rights are under the law, and importantly, what your obligations are under the law. One of the things that I have seen time and time again is, for example, people who are not part of the family law industry, and they get, they look stuff up online, or they end up, getting advice from coworkers. Well, they can end up entering into an agreement with their ex-spouse that might not be legal in terms of the law itself, but also might be drastically unfair. Let me give you an example of that. And this I've seen over and over and over again. So let's say there's a family, and I am thinking of a case I had once, and let's say the husband earns $250,000 a year. And they have two children, and the wife earns $70,000 a year. Now, these parties are going to share the parenting of their kids on an equal basis. Now, a lot of people believe incorrectly, at least in my jurisdiction, and again, you always want to consult with a lawyer in your jurisdiction. They believe incorrectly that when you share children on an equal basis, that there's no child support that's payable that goes back and forth. Well, when you have income that is that different, what ends up happening is, we've split the family into two different houses. And of course, there's a time period where everybody takes a hit when that happens. When you go to having a combined income of $320,000, but then one household has $70,000 and the other household of three people half the time, the other household of three people half the time has $250,000, well, you can see that there will likely end up being a pretty big difference in lifestyle, in disposable cash, all that kind of stuff. So in that circumstance, in that scenario, is that unless the parties agree otherwise, that there would be some support flowing from the higher earning parent to the lower earning parent, even though they're sharing the kids equally. So again, what I'm saying is if you're thinking about getting divorced without using a lawyer, fine, great idea. However, do invest in that 1 or 2 hours of a lawyer's time to understand your rights and your obligations. It's so important. Oh, hey, it's me. Interrupting a little bit because I want videos like this to reach more people. So if you are enjoying what you see, if you're finding it helpful, please hit the subscribe button, which is somewhere up there. And also tell me, what was the biggest takeaway you had with respect to this video? Leave it in the comments below and I will answer every comment, every question, because that's what I do. Now, the second instance that you want to make sure that you use a lawyer, even if you're going to go ahead and get divorced and not use a lawyer, which is fine. The second instance is that if you have reached an agreement with your ex-spouse or soon-to-be ex-spouse and you've got it all sorted out, for the love of Pete, make sure that you get a lawyer to draft the document and make sure they draft the document in appropriate legal separation language. So this is the kind of problem where I have seen clients before they became my clients make really big mistakes. So I'm going to give you the story of Josh. Josh and his spouse, they separated, oodles, a long time ago, I'll say 2012 or something. And what happened is they reached an agreement, and then Josh, what he did was he pulled down from the internet a template, thinking, well, I don't want to pay some lawyer $2,000 or whatever it is, or $3,000 to draft up this agreement. We'll do it ourselves. So he prints it off, they negotiate back and forth, and they fill it out. Neither of them get independent legal advice. They sign it off. Now, the thing is Wanda, Josh's spouse, well, the point is that they had this house. The house was in Wanda's name, but it was what we call upside down. What I mean by that is there was more money owing on the house than it was worth. So the plan is that Josh was going to take over all the debt associated with the house, and Wanda was going to get to live there for very low rent for about a year. And then when Josh was in a position to refinance the mortgage and do all of that, then Wanda would sign the house over to him and then be all done. So the advantage for Wanda, of course, was she was able to walk away from the relationship without carrying any debt whatsoever. And the advantage for Josh, he thought, well, maybe I hope one day this house is going to have some value. So Josh, went off to work, worked hard, paid down a whole bunch of debt, and then a bunch of the debt, all of it, except the mortgage. And then he's finally, a few years goes by, and he's now in the position, meanwhile, she's living there for very low rent the whole time. So he's in the position to do this refinance so he can pay out the mortgage, get the property in his name. And meanwhile, while this was happening, the property value went way, way up. And so Wanda then is thinking, I don't think I necessarily want to sign this house over anymore. So she brings this agreement to a lawyer and apparently receives some legal advice that says, oh, that agreement is not worth the paper it's written on. So Josh tries everything. He tries to negotiate with her, saying, hey, let's get the house appraised and we'll divide the proceeds. Let's sell it, divide the proceeds. And she was like, nope, I want the house now. It's mine. And I signed that agreement under duress years ago. Now, the point about the agreement is it was really quite poorly drafted and parts of it contradicted each other. And there were some things that were just completely incorrect. So ultimately, Josh succeeded. He ended up getting the house transferred to him when he was able to do the refinance. But that took a court order, and because he had to go to court to enforce the term of that agreement, well, that cost him countless thousands of dollars to do that, and that all could have been avoided. And if that draft agreement, if the agreement itself had been drafted properly to begin with, then my guess is that when Wanda brought it to a lawyer and said, do I have to abide by this agreement? The lawyer would go, yeah, you do. And because it had so many problems with the language, etc., that, well, lo and behold, Josh eventually succeeded, but not without huge cost. So again, if you're thinking of divorcing without a lawyer, no problem. However, here's the third instance that you want to ensure that you at least consult with a lawyer. And I alluded to it when I was talking about Josh and Wanda. And that is getting independent legal advice in relation to the separation agreement that you do sign. So you want to make absolutely sure that you have that independent legal advice because A, you can get the legal advice, and B, it actually bulletproofs the agreement and makes it solidified. And you want to make sure absolutely 100% that your soon-to-be ex-spouse or ex-spouse gets independent legal advice on the agreement as well. I can't tell you how many instances over the years where people have separated, they've entered into an agreement, everything is tickety-boo, but then later someone changes their mind for some reason. And they say, I signed this agreement under duress. The other party, they bullied me. I wasn't given an opportunity to get independent legal advice. And I'm thinking about one case I dealt with where the trial in question went for 19 days. Now, they had some parenting stuff too. But this big, long trial, a big part of it had to do with a cohabitation agreement. This is an agreement where basically they came together and basically said, okay, if we break up, I get to keep my stuff, you get to keep your stuff, that kind of thing. Well, again, when they separated, my client's assets, the value had gone way up, whereas the other person's assets hadn't so much. And so they wanted part of my client's assets. And they said that, well, they signed the agreement under duress. And so again, ultimately, my client's case prevailed. He won the case, but not without a huge amount of expense and stress and sleepless nights, not to mention a big length of time without knowing if the matter would be resolved in his favor or not. So the point being this, and I even tell my clients, if you have to pay to get your ex to obtain that independent legal advice, do it, because that will protect and bulletproof your agreement and ensure it will be stable no matter what. And again, it's not that that other lawyer isn't going to give the advice. They'll give the advice if they're worth their salt. And even if they advise against signing it, the point being, which can happen if the agreement isn't fair to them. At the same time, what's the point of having an agreement if it can easily be set aside? And so that's one thing you want to do, is ensure that everybody gets independent legal advice. Again, this isn't a situation where you're having to throw down this big, huge retainer or anything like that. It's a situation where you can just pay for the lawyer's time or a flat fee. My office, for example, my firm, we charge a flat fee to go through an agreement and provide the independent legal advice that that clients need. Now, finally, there's a fourth instance, and this one is so important. And again, I'm not saying this to get my divorce lawyer friends money or clients. The thing is that there's a fourth instance. So if you are thinking about getting divorced without a lawyer, fine. If you're thinking about negotiating a separation agreement without a lawyer, fine. However, the fourth instance that you want to make sure you have a lawyer, if you can at all afford it, is if you are going into a contested proceeding of any sort, any contested proceeding that matters. So, for example, if you are, going to court to have a fight about custody over your kids, well, you don't want to go in and do that hearing on your own. Your lawyer is going to have the skills, and again, more about choosing the right divorce lawyer in another video, but you want to choose the right divorce lawyer, the best divorce lawyer for your case. And again, you don't necessarily have to have them on this big, long retainer or anything like that. You can actually hire them just to do the actual hearing for you. And they're going to be able to explain the evidence, present the evidence well. They're going to be able to present the law in a way that the judge understands and accepts. So that's what you want to do. So here's the 4 times that you want to ensure you hire a lawyer or at least consult with one. Is number 1, at the initial phase, when you first get separated or divorced, if you're negotiating with your ex directly, you want to know your rights and responsibilities. The second thing is make sure if you've reached that agreement that you've gotten a lawyer to draft its terms. The third one, of course, is getting independent legal advice and making sure your ex is getting the independent legal advice as well. And finally, if you're going into any kind of contested proceeding that matters, where the stakes are high, you want to make sure you hire a lawyer. So this is Val. Much, much love. If you found this video helpful, and I hope you did, please give it a thumbs up. Because if you do that, then this video will be able to reach more people. And as well, if you want to stay in closer touch with me, please ring the little bell icon so that you can subscribe to this channel. This is Val. Much, much love.